Hey, what's up, everyone? Trent Russell here. Today, I am joined by one of the most followed and recognized sales leaders and voices on LinkedIn and really across the overall tech landscape, Kevin Dorsey. Kevin, how are you feeling today?
I'm good, my man. I am good. This is a long time coming. I feel like we've been in rotating circles, but have never actually connected. It's a long time coming. Excited to be here, man.
Well, I'm excited to gravitate your circle here today because you've got one of the biggest circles of them all. I know really our intention here today before we hit record was just we want to help folks level up in their tech sales career. Whether you're looking to get hired as an SDR, BDR, whether you're younger in your tech sales career like I was a few short years ago, how do you get to an account executive? How do you get into a closing role? How do you maximize your income earning potential? So why don't we start, KD, with why did you decide to pursue a career in tech sales? And why do you view it as one of the most promising career paths for anyone looking to make money and find a successful life in the future?
I mean, 'cause at the end of the day, man, truthfully, there weren't a lot of other options out for me. To be completely honest, right? I'm a college dropout. I dropped out 18 credits short of graduation, and it was something where else, could you start a career that could make you multiple six figures without necessarily having to have a college degree to do so, where your work ethic and your willingness to learn and execute can take you levels on levels on levels. And it's where the future's going. If you look, a lot of industries are either shrinking or retracting. Software is not shrinking. Yes, this year has been tough with layoffs and things like that, but the industry is going nowhere. It's not like there's going to be less software in the next decade or less AI in the next decade. So it's just the opportunities are unreal, man, to make money that, truth, if I'm being honest as a kid, I couldn't even fathom, right? In terms of wow, I can make 100K, 200K, 400K, 500, couldn't even wrap my head around that. And that's impossible in tech sales, man. So it's just the best. It really is.
Before we zoom into someone earlier in their career, how they can get to the next level, let's start with what you are doing today, KD, because I think it's a point of aspiration for many being a VP, leader of sales, speaking at conferences, being a recognized voice on LinkedIn. Can you talk about what you're up to today and what it means to level up or what you're looking ahead in your own career?
I mean, so I'm the SVP of revenue at a fast growing startup out of Vancouver called Bench Accounting. Looking to build a third unicorn. I've been able to build two so far in terms of getting two different companies to 100 mil plus in ARR and $1 billion valuations of going for the trifecta, which, I don't know if a lot of people can say they've pulled that one off. So I'm going for it and do it. So I lead the SDR org, the AE org, the expansion org, the channel org, the partnership org, like all that rolls to me. And I love it. This is what I do. I took a year off just to do consulting and training, and it was fun, and I enjoyed it. But I missed having a team. I missed being able to build something special. So that's what I'm doing now, and obviously coaching and consulting and speaking on the side. It just keeps me in the game. It's something that I enjoy doing. The LinkedIn stuff is interesting because that was never a goal. Like everyone, setting out now, build a brand, start to build your brand. I was like, start off at feel good, and I never thought I was going to be an influencer. I'm an introvert. I'm not an extrovert. I'm not a social butterfly. Being the center of attention is actually so very weird for me in a lot of ways. But it happened over time, and here I am. So it's been quite the journey.
From your altitude, KD, as a leader of people, someone who speaks at conferences and trains a lot of reps, when you think of the trifecta, the behavior, the process, systems reps need to know in order to find sustained and long-term success, what do you train folks on that are, let's say, maybe in that first 5-year window of their sales career? What do they need to know to find continued success?
So the funny enough, man, the first thing I teach is actually mindset, right? So it's one of the first sessions in the onboarding, process, for my orgs is how can we craft the right mindset? Because funny enough, man, and I work with a coach and he worked with me a lot on this, is if we can shift our being, the doing takes care of itself. Meaning if SDRs out there were being more disciplined, being more confident, being more creative, being more gritty, being more resilient, being more perseverant, being more empathetic, what would happen to results, Trent? If they were being those things.
Unlimited pipeline.
Right? The results would skyrocket. So much of when I see SDRs out there struggling and closers struggling, a lot of it is not actually not knowing what to do. Like it's out there. They can follow people like you. They can follow people like me. They can read books. Like how to do these things. That's out there. It's who they are here. So it starts with the mindset. Like, and it's just shifted. Like two of the books I used to buy in sales or which were fanatical prospecting, gap selling, that has shifted to do hard things in a confident mind. And I crafted it. If I can get you to think the way a world class seller thinks, like that's where sky's the limit. That's a big one. It's like mindset. And then from there, it shifts into psychology, persuasion, influence, where I just said this to my team a few weeks ago. I was like, I don't want to turn you into great bench salespeople. I want to turn you into great salespeople. You just have to work at bench. And so I'm going to teach you things that apply anywhere, right? Like if you're selling to people that have a brain, have it's the whole thing in between our ears. There's certain things that we know that trigger responses, trigger certain emotions. So we spend a lot of time on that as well. Because if I can get you to understand how people think, make decisions, and buy, and I can help you have like that confident mindset, that willingness to put in the work, well then scripting, emails, process, then that's easy work. After that, that's where the heavy lifting starts. So I'll pause there.
As you think about selling based on emotion or region or logic or your messaging, I know that buyers right now are in a challenging window where their businesses may not be just growing at rapid rates like before. They're focused on more efficient growth, which creates a lot of challenges right now, mid 2023 for reps out there. So as you think about the sales psychology of prospecting, how do reps get the attention of their buyers in order to just get initial meetings and start sales cycles?
So you have to make the objection the reason. So you have to pivot your messaging. If you are still reaching out to people talking about your product, you're already missing. I can tell you that right now. The second, like if you grow in your prospecting efforts, you start to talk about problems, which is great. If you talk about problems, it's easier to start the conversation. Right now, you need to actually be leading with the objection and making it the reason why you should talk. So you have to be able to connect your dots of your product to the current reality. So like, like think about like what you do, because you do like training for like sales dev and like things of that nature, right? It's like, well, okay, budgets are tight right now. I would lead with that because budgets are tight. We have to talk about leveling up your people because it's harder now. So you have to connect the dots between the new reality, right? What is the objection? Budgets are tight, hiring freezes, lead with that, connect the dots to your product and why you should have the conversation. That's how you break through right now, is going through that. And then also I'm just a big proponent of video as well, because I don't think enough people leverage video in their prospecting, right? I get probably 20 to 40 cold emails a day. I get one video maybe a month. Like that's another way you can stand out.
As you think about gaining the attention of yourself and other buyers, you said video was a great way to cut through the noise. And for the rep out there that's really used to their normal rhythm of cold calling, sending cold emails, maybe a LinkedIn note, what are some of those beginner tips to get started with video prospecting?
So it follows the same framework that I teach around emails, which is KPIC is the framework, right? Which is no problem, impact, connect the dots, call to action, right? That's the framework for a good video, for a good email, even for a good voicemail, right? It's like, here's what I know about you, your company, or your persona. Here's the problems that you're probably dealing with right now. Here's what those problems are causing, impact, CTD, connect the dots. Like, here's why I'm actually reaching out to you, CTA. Here's what I want you to do. That's a very easy framework to follow, but it makes a great video and it makes a great email. And they actually should be following the same scripts. That's what was always so funny to me as reps. Like, I don't know what to say on video. What do you send you via email? Say that via video. What do you, if you actually got me on the phone, what would you want to say to me? Say that via video. But I will throw out two quick tips on it. One, record your research. This does not have to be extra time. If you are researching a prospect, record the research. You just found something cool on Trent. Click record. It's like, hey, Trent, so I was just going through one of your posts and I saw right here, like you mentioned X, Y, Z. That made me think I gotta reach out to this guy because you get it. Like, that's not extra time. That was in the moment. You recorded it and now you have something that you can send. But then the second is like, end it and send it was always my advice to my team, is we tend to overthink where we re-record it, try to get perfect. End it and send it. End it, send it. You stumbled, send it. Your dog started to bark in the background, send it. End it and send it. We do not send it. We do not re-record it.
It doesn't need to be perfect. We just need to start taking action. And something that was always so helpful to me, KD, in my own sales career, rising the ranks as an SDR to an AE, was just not losing sight of how important my role was and the reason why pipeline helps fuel the business's growth and generating revenue. From your perspective and altitude as someone who is scaling sales teams, can you just talk about why the role of a sales development rep or even an account executive in a closing role, why generating fresh new pipeline is so important to not only individual success, but also business success?
I mean, this was literally on our new hire shirts and our team sweatshirts at Patient. PO, pipeline over everything. That was our mantra. We talked about it in meeting. We talked about it in Slack channels. It was on freaking t-shirts. Like, we lived this idea of like pipeline over everything. Companies don't die because they drown in pipeline. They die because they starve. It's not enough of it. So it has to be the mindset is we are always creating new pipeline. I just posted about this the other week of like, actually, I hate the title sales development. I hate it because people treat it like a title. They don't treat it like a skill. Prospecting is a skill. Generating pipeline is a skill that if you build and then maintain, you will win in life. If you know how to cold call, if you know how to send cold emails, if you know how to send cold like videos, like if you can generate opportunities to sell, if we go head to head, I could be twice as good of a closer as you, Trey. But if you know how to generate pipeline and I don't, who wins?
The more pipeline is always going to win.
There's no context. So it's a skill. It is everything when it comes to selling, but also business as well, right? If you want to start your own business, if you want to bring up a product to market, knowing how to generate pipeline is everything. So it's a skill set. I talk about this with my team. This is a skill. This is not a title. I don't care if you're an SDR right now. When you become an AE, you better maintain this skill. Don't forget about this thing that you did, that you learned how to do, and then get away from it. So a lot of AEs do, like SDR. It's like you want to get out of the SDR job. Like, I want to be an SDR just so I can be an AE. It's like this transition area. It's like, no, this is the foundation of the career if you treat it the right way.
The reps that become the most successful account executives that started out as SDRs, BDRs, no degree, no experience, what are the traits that you observe are most in common from the reps who are able to level up successfully in their career?
So the traits are very similar between like a successful SDR and a successful AE. The skills are very different. And that is actually where I see a lot of SDRs fall flat. Actually, there were some studies that came out that actually showed the failure rate of SDRs in their first AE role. Just because you are a great SDR does not actually mean you'll be a great closer. It means you have the characteristics necessary to be a great closer. They're different skills. It's like me being really good at hockey and then shocked that I'm not so good at basketball. Like, yeah, I'm an athlete, and yeah, I have some explosiveness, and yeah, I got good hand-eye coordination. They're different sports. And so what I see a lot of SDRs struggle with is there's this assumption because I was a good SDR, I'll be a good closer, but they never invest in actually getting the skills necessary. That's been the biggest difference. It's the SDRs that start to learn the closing skills before they become an AE. So like in my orgs, you're an SDR, you have certain marks you have to hit to earn your promotion. When you earn the promotion, you actually earned the right to go into an AE boot camp. You didn't even get the promotion. You earned the right to go to an AE boot camp. And then it was 90 days while you were still SDR. You were learning how to be a closer. And then you had to that boot camp get passing to become that closer. But what that allowed for is now you actually know how to do it. Companies get this wrong all the time. They just promote an SDR to AE. There's no training. You literally just hired a closer with no experience. People forget that. So that's the biggest difference, man. The characteristics are the same. It's the skills. And the best ones start learning those skills very, very soon. You know, like we talk a lot of SDRs. I do too. You know, I mean, you don't even listen to the AE demos. They've been an SDR for a year. They've listened to 10 demos. They're not even listening to they're not even learning the skills necessary to be good at that next role, and they're missing out.
As an SDR, I totally feel what you're saying because I sat in on hundreds of discovery calls and was sort of listening, not really. I just wanted to get my opportunity accepted. It wasn't until, as an SDR, my account executive at the time forced me to run a sales cycle myself. That one rep prepared me so much to hit the ground running. We got no show to the final negotiation call, but it was still a great learning experience. And you mentioned the skills of just doing top of funnel prospecting is much different from still having to do top of funnel prospecting, but also discovery, solution presentations, negotiation, hygiene, all of these different skills. As we think about tactical advice reps can use today, maybe there's folks listening out there that do not have to run discovery today, but they're thinking about putting their toes in the water and starting to foster some of those skills to then earn the right to be in a closing role. If you were to set up a meeting with me today, let's say, and we were coming together to talk and you wanted to start a sales cycle, what are some of the most important considerations you think about, whether it be pre-call prep and just coming to the table ready to do effective discovery?
So I mean, it's a lot of those things, right? So there's always the pre-call prep of like, what can I quickly find out about you, your company, and your persona, right? So I'm doing a good 10, 15 minutes of like, because I can't find it easily. I don't have to keep going down that rabbit hole. But I'm looking like, hey, what have you written recently? What have you posted about? What are the posts that you like? Any company updates, things of that nature. Then also like, what is your role? What's happening with that role across the industry? From there, my number one goal in discovery is to get you to agree to a product. That's my number one goal. Is can I get you to agree there is a problem in your world? Because if there's no agreement to problem, there's nothing to sell. And if so many reps are, they focus on discovery like it's qualification. Well, Trent, like how many people are on your team? And like, oh, like what are your goals this year? And then do you have a budget set for this? Like, no. Like I need to be asking questions to expose a problem that my product could potentially solve. Right. So that is my far and away, right? So if I look at discovery, I want problem agreement, I want impact of that problem, I want friction in fixing, I want the better future they desire, the impact of that better future, and what they're willing to do to get to that point and place, right? Like that's what discovery is all about. How many seats they are, how big they are, all that kind of stuff. I get that. I get the good stuff that I look for in discovery.
As you think about leading indicators of success, I would always look at the amount of meetings I set that would result in, let's say, a certain amount of pipeline. If I had 4x pipeline, I knew I had a better chance of hitting my quota, for example. I know that the metrics change by company and level you are at the business, but as someone who's a sales leader like yourself that's looking at all of the data across all of the company, let's zoom into the rep standpoint as just an SDR in the first few years of their tech sales career. What metrics should they be holding themselves accountable in order to deliver on their pipeline or their revenue targets?
Connect rate, conversation rate, conversation to meeting rate, show rate, touches per lead, open rate, response rate, click-through rate, and sentiment. That right there is what you need to know, because if you know those numbers, you know how many dials you need to do per day. If I know my connect rate is 10% and I know my conversation conversion rate is 20%, well, that means I got to make 10 calls to get one conversation. That means I got to get to at least 10 conversations to get my 2 meetings. Well, that's a 5. That means I got to make at least 500 calls to get my 2. Right. You got to know your numbers. So you actually know, because too often, like, and reps hate activity conversations. And I always laugh when I see this stuff talk, people get fired up on LinkedIn. It's about quality, not quantity. And I go, cool. So make 1 dial and hit quota, please. Oh, you can't? You need a certain quantity of quality. They are not on separate ends of the spectrum. So you need to know those numbers. If you know those numbers, you can actually work backwards then to your goals, right? So connect rate, conversation to meeting rate, show rate, open rates, response rates, click-through rates, sentiment, touches per lead, and like number of leads worked. Those are the top 10 for pipeline.
Well, everyone listening right now is going to have to go back, rewatch it, make sure they know their numbers. They're taking notes right now. In the last few minutes, while I have you here today, Katie, rapid fire questions, and then we'll talk about some specific resources reps can leverage. Since I know you mentioned investing in yourself is so important for development. When you have a rep come to you for, let's say, a career development conversation, and they're thinking about, should I really commit to this individual contributor route, or maybe I want to go in leadership someday? How
Mm.
would you respond to that, or what advice would you give them for thinking about a rep's career path ahead?
So it depends on what they've been doing. And here's what I mean, and this is how I've grown as a leader. I no longer really have those conversations with people that aren't already leading.
Mm,
In my opinion and in my experience, leaders lead before there's a title, right? Like you can tell. There, and my definition of leadership is making people better, right? Are they already making people better around them? Are they already lifting people up? Are they known to be a leader in the org? Because if they're not already acting that way, it's not a great sign to me that they are actually cut out for leadership. So I look for it early. Like more often than not, I know you have potential for a leader, maybe even before you do, right? Like you're doing the things a leader would do. Then when they say you ask them actually some very pointed questions. One, are you ready to put your paycheck in someone else's hands? Two, are you ready for your results to no longer be tied to your work ethic? You can't work your way to success as a manager or as a leader. Three, are you ready for me to be upset with you because what your team is doing, right? Like, and I ask them those questions, and I'm reading body language, I'm reading the response, I'm reading how they go through it because that catches some people sometimes. They're like, oh, gee, I didn't think about that. And that's where I get to talk about the difference between leading and managing. You can be a leader without having to be a manager, and you can still support people. Actually, truthfully, being a leader is way more fun than being because you just do like the fun stuff. You have to do like the hard stuff, right? But once you're a manager, you're responsible for those people and their results. That's a different level. So that's what I'm doing. Is like I look for it early and often. I kind of tag you. It's like, ooh, Brent's got leadership potential here, and then I actually tend to be the one bringing it to my people. They're not the ones that are coming to me about it.
with all the responsibility you carry today, KD, with this leader of sales hat on, what are some of the biggest challenges you face today in your day to day?
People. It's the hardest part about leadership. People. I think it was Naval Ravikant said it in his book. The hardest thing about leadership is people. If it weren't for people, leadership would be really easy. People are always the largest struggle, right? How do you inspire? How do you coach? How do you train? How do you hold accountable? How do you connect with? Right? How do you get in front of? Like people is the hardest part of leadership. It's why I spend so much time studying people and like what makes us do things. How do we think about things? How to build these processes? And if I can figure those things out, I can get the people to do what the people need to do to benefit them. Right? People's always the hardest part. Always the hardest part. We are very interesting creatures, right? Like we crave novelty. We hate change. We want success, but we don't want to do what it takes to be successful. We want better results, but we don't want to be better ourselves. Like we're constantly human dichotomy, a very interesting game that we play. So people's the hardest part for sure.
What is one actionable piece of advice someone listening today that may have a full time job can use to start building a personal brand?
Mm-hmm. So write to you a year and a half ago. That's the easiest way, right? Is like, what's the, like, write to yourself a year and a half ago. What do you wish you knew a year and a half ago that you actually do have some experience in? Where I see a lot of people going wrong with their brand building is they're writing about things that they may not actually have either a lot of experience in or not a lot of proof points around. Write to yourself a year ago because you have experience there, and then really engage with other people in the space, right? Jump on the post, write good comments, not just like, yeah, this is great. Like, write good comments. Respond to other people's comments. People miss on it all the time because they don't respond to other people's comments. They just respond to one person's comments. Respond to other people's comments, really engage there. And lastly, study copywriting so you know how to write a good post, but then stick with it. Takes time. Takes time to get that momentum going.
For the rep out there that's looking to level up in their tech sales career and ultimately get into that closing role so that they can increase their income, deliver better results to their organization, and just get more of what they want out of life. Can you talk about the resources you're using or you make available to reps to help them find that success today?
For sure. So I mean, this is why I teamed up with Level Design. built. I mean, this course on how to be a world-class SaaS closer, it's almost 15 hours of content. This is not some like little 90-minute like slide about that course, right? And it's the same, quite literally the same content I'm teaching my team right now. It's also the difference between, I'd say, me and a lot of sales trainers, and I'm still actually leading a team. Like I'm not just like I'm actually doing it now. I'm testing it still. I'm making improvements as I go. Like just last week, I led my whole org to the first module of psychology of influence and persuasion. Like it's happening, right? So like that's why I partnered with Leveled. It's a course, you go buy it, whatever, a few $100 to go and do this there as a resource to start getting better at the skill now. Because if you wait to get the promotion to get good at it, you're not gonna get the promotion. You have to get those skills. Show your boss, show this company that you invest in yourself, that you have the skills, you know how to run this, you know how to do those things. That's the key. So I would check that out. You can follow me and other people on LinkedIn, read all the books, y'all. Like the information's out there for us. Just gotta go get it.
Well, Katie, I've learned a lot here today, and I know everyone listening has as well. I personally have been following you on LinkedIn for probably 12 to 18 months now, quite a long time. So anyone listening right now, make sure to go follow Kevin Dorsey on LinkedIn. And we'll put a link down below, however you're listening to this or however you may be watching, to leveledcareers.com/tech sales closer course. And I know it's going to be incredibly impactful to your development. So Katie, thanks so much for being here today. And let's go crush it this week.
Appreciate it, my man.